Oh my God, it just feels so awesome to be back here again. I think this by far was the longest that I have stayed away from the community since we started it in July last year. And sorry for my shabby appearance. I was just not feeling up to it, but I couldn't miss out on this chance to see you guys all over again. Okay. And after having gone through this experience, I just had to share it in this community, in our family group, in our community, which has been such an integral part of my life for like as many months now. Okay, and I think if there is one thing that I really missed besides my work was basically being here every Thursday and every Saturday and getting to interact with all of you, getting to connect with you, speak with you, and yeah, so much more. I just missed all of this excitement. But hey, good to be back again. So, all right. So, okay. So we got COVIDified, so to say. Okay, and it just kind of came in when we were least expecting it. And I'm sure I've shared it earlier in the community that we've been like very careful. So we come from a family where almost all of us have some or the other comorbidity, and we've been extra cautious in terms of not stepping out. I practically have been holed up home for like as long as I remember. I think like since last March, probably just one or two outings, and that's about it. Okay, and that too, the outings were through this year. So all of last year was like inside the house. So when we really got tested positive, our first reaction was, "What the hell?" Okay, I mean, this can't be happening. All right. And I think we got the same reaction from the few friends and family who kind of got to know about it, because everybody kind of refused to believe that we could come down with it, but it had to happen, and it did. Okay, so how did it really happen? We came in contact with a neighbor, who are like family friends of ours. They live within the society that we live in, and they had a death in their family. And my parents went visiting, and likewise, I think my mom and my sister, they went to give them some lunch the next day. And interestingly, they had tested negative for RT-PCR just a week, 10 days before that. So we kind of knew that they were safe. But unfortunately, they started having symptoms, and they tested positive the next day itself. And I think that was it. And as soon as we got to know that they had tested positive, we kind of got ourselves tested as well the next day, the very next day, because their reports came in late in the night. And we got ourselves tested the next day. And between the four of us, because my brother-in-law is still at his place, I think I'd shared that he had met with an accident, so he's still not completely mobile. He's still on the walker. And fortunately, my sister was supposed to go and see him on Saturday, and this happened on Friday that we got to know that they were positive. And she decided to drop the plan because she was like, okay, hell, let's just get tested and then I'll figure out if I should be going or not. Okay. So only my father was negative, and my mom, my sister, and I, all three of us, we tested positive. And but of course, because of the three of us, my dad was like stuck at home for the next 17 days just with us. Okay, so obviously he couldn't step out either. We got a lot of help from the society. I think that's something which we're like really grateful for, in terms of whatever support that we needed. And plus, we had Crusoe at home, and, obviously they kind of went out of their way to make sure that, there was somebody to walk Crusoe around and stuff. So it was like really nice and very empathetic on their part to have actually done that. So for me, the first thought which came to my mind was, oh my God, I got to spend like 17 days with my mom and my sister. Okay, so for those of you who know my sis would know that she's like a second mother to me, though she's younger. And I was like, okay, fine. Now I have like two instruction manuals, one on my right and one on my left, and I'm like stuck between them. In fact, I'd asked my mom somewhere between these 17 days on if she had a choice of choosing who she would prefer to be isolated with, would she prefer me or would she prefer my sister? And obviously my mom was very diplomatic. She said, oh, no, I wouldn't want neither of you to be there with me. But I'm sure she would have preferred being with my sister, because had it been just my mom and I'm sure my dad and my sister would have been mighty stressed. Just kidding. So thankfully, because we didn't really spend too much time thinking and pondering and waiting for the symptoms to show up, we started off with very mild symptoms. So my sister basically had just some body pain and mild fever on that day. And I had a bit of a throat issue in the sense I had like a little bit of pain. And very surprisingly, my mom didn't have any symptoms, at least to start with. She did have mild fever on the second, third day, but otherwise she was doing okay. So I think one of the biggest things that I realized was no matter how much precautions you're taking, it's better to be prepared. And worrying about it will not really help. If it has to come to you, it will. But what I also realized was that there were a whole lot of ways in which you can deal with it so that you have the least impact. And I think we really got through it fairly easy. And I know that there aren't a lot of people who are as lucky. We've been fortunate, but it also has to do with the fact that we didn't spend a lot of time. So I think that's the first lesson that I learned through it, is that even if it's the smallest of the symptoms, if you have the slightest of doubt, just don't wait. Okay. A lot of people are not having major symptoms. The symptoms are very, very mild, but waiting it out would possibly mean that you are kind of losing precious time, because by the time you hit the fourth or the fifth day, you would probably, your symptoms would have just aggravated. Yes, you will start seeing symptoms by then, but then saying that, that actually means that you have spent as much time without initiating any form of treatment for that matter. Okay. So the slightest symptoms that you have, please just go ahead and get yourself tested. More so if you have comorbidities, you don't want to take a chance. Now, I agree, when you come onto Facebook or you go to any of the social platforms, you actually see that there are as many people who are actually putting it out there, searching for hospital beds and, looking out for oxygen, and it's heartbreaking. Statistically, if you actually look at it, we have roughly about 23 million confirmed cases as of April, out of which there are about 250,000 people who have died, which is roughly just about 0.86%, not even 1%. But on a base of 1.3 billion people that we have in our country, that number is huge. Okay. And the only thing that I have been telling everybody is that, listen, if everything goes well, maybe you are in that 99% of people who can still get away with it. Even people who are hospitalized, I think it's just about 3 or 4%. So it's not actually huge in terms of a percentage, but you sure don't want to be in that 3% or 4%, right? So that's exactly why we need to be careful. Now, on this note, I want to thank our neighbors, okay, the ones, our family friends, for having gotten themselves tested as soon as they spotted the smallest symptoms. Because trust me, had it not been for the fact that they had tested themselves, we would have never gotten to know that we could be positive as well, because we really did not have any symptoms on the day on which their reports came in. Okay, so for your own sake and for the sake of the people that you have come in contact with, I would request all of you that smallest symptoms, don't delay, just get yourself tested. The second thing that really worked well for us was that we had a great team of doctors, okay, that we could have ever asked for, right from our family doctor to my nephrologist to two brilliant doctors from our own family, my brother-in-law Lalit and my nephew Astra, who we were constantly in touch with. In the sense, my sister, she was kind of constantly coordinating with everybody, and I think that kind of really helped because, so technically between my mom and my sister, I just had to follow instructions. So I'll just keep myself out of it because I was just doing what I was being asked to do. But between my sister and my mom, my sister was taking care of everything related to, the medical part of things, like, right from liaising with the doctors, with my relatives, and at the same time, figuring out the medicine dosage, what needs to be given when, monitoring the blood pressure, the oximeter, the pulse oximeter, and so on and so forth. And my mom was taking care of all the non-medical stuff, like right from keeping everything clean. Of course, she was giving instructions, we were following orders as well, but the sanitization, the food, in terms of, making sure that everything is like neat and clean and, kept away from dad and everything. So all of that was my mom basically. But yeah, if somebody is isolated alone, then I know there is like as much that needs to be done. And we're going to talk about that as well, because I think it becomes important to simplify things there. Uh, what worked for us was having a routine. No matter how tired we were, or we were just not feeling up to it, or we felt like just sleeping, because you do get groggy, you do get tired, you do get lethargic. But saying that there are things that need to be done, okay, and you've got to do them for yourself. Okay, like say for example, for us, we had a set routine that we would do this once in the morning and once in the evening, right from doing our pranayam to breathing exercises, using the spirometer. For those of you who don't know, spirometer or spirometer, I think that's what you call it, is basically a device which increases your lung capacity and strengthens it. Okay, monitoring our taking our measurements, etc. We used to be like really really tired, but we would make time to make sure that we do it at a certain time every day. Okay. uh, and I think that also brings me to this part, that it is extremely important to have a couple of things at home, irrespective of whether you have conditions or you don't have conditions. One is, please have a thermometer, which I'm sure I think most of you would have. Please have a pulse oximeter. Keep a BP machine handy, uh, a sugar monitoring machine, because what happens is, in conditions like these, you have fluctuations. You have fluctuations because of the medication, because of the condition, because of in general the changes that are happening in your body, and you need to be aware of what's happening inside you. Okay, especially for those of you who are on steroids, I think having a sugar machine is like non-negotiable. Steroids in the sense, because for a lot of people, they are administering steroids as well. So in those cases, there is a fair chance that your sugars might rise. Okay, and learn about this technique called proning. I'm sure a lot of you may have heard of it, but that has been recommended as a safe way of keeping your oxygen in check. So in case you are kind of feeling breathless and you do not have access to oxygen, it kind of helps you. So learn about this in advance. Okay. uh, Hygiene and cleanliness is, of course, very, very important. You got to have your separate utensils. You got to have your room cleaned up, not cluttered, having good ventilation in the room, and of course, you need to be in a mask. But then saying that, you don't have to be in the mask like throughout. Okay, if you are alone in the room, then it's fine for you to kind of let go of it, because you obviously need to breathe. But saying that, yes, if you're anywhere in the proximity of people, just make sure that you're wearing a double mask. Okay, but as far as possible, try and simplify your life. Okay, when I say simplify your life, like say for example, it was very clear, it was not that we were tired, or we were basically not at least in the initial 4 5 days, we were kind of pretty okay. We were not feeling very very tired. I think the exhaustion really set in from the 6th day onwards. But you know what, keep your body as rested as possible. We were ordering in food. We had identified a lady who basically delivered tiffins and home cooked food, simple vegetarian food. Non-veg is great as well, because it is recommended that you take like proteins. But of course, we didn't really want to order in non-veg from outside. So the few times, the 3 4 times that we really had non-veg through this time, my dad was the chef. Okay, so he actually cooked food for all of us because we couldn't get into the kitchen. Okay. So yeah, so mostly we were kind of, we pretty much were ordering food. We used only 2 pairs of clothes. Okay, no stress of, oh, where do I get my clothes from, what do I wear, and so on and so forth. We were just alternating between 2 pairs every day, and we would just kind of finish our showers, dump it in the machine, and that's about it. It was washed every day. Okay, with Dettol warm water. Okay. I'm not going to get into the whole hygiene aspects, because of course, wearing mask, wearing gloves when you are handling stuff, and social distancing, of course, is like non-negotiable. Sanitizing spaces is, of course, non-negotiable, but there's enough and more information about that. minimize phone calls. Okay, I practically was off phone calls for as long as I remember. Even with the close chuddy buddy gang that I had, like my girl group that I have from my college days and all, I had created a group, okay, which where I used to post like common updates. So everybody, all the 4 5 of us were kind of updated in terms of what was happening, okay. And I got my space, few calls, you know informing people. Yes, of course, there were like very few, I think just about 3 4 people who I was in touch with through that time. And of course, people who were calling in, of course I was telling them about what was happening, but then saying that majorly it was just these 3 4 sets of people that I was in contact with, because you need to stay energetic, you need to save your energy, okay. And I have realized that creating groups, and I think people are very very empathetic and they understand that you're really not in that space to actually have conversations. But yeah, saying that, I know it gets to be difficult because we're so used to be glued on to our mobile phones and having conversations and interacting. It takes some amount of restraint, especially for someone like me who's like extremely social. But I think we managed it fairly well. Okay. Uh, don't forget to keep the humor intact, okay, because I have realized that a lot of times these conditions, and I've seen it through COVID and I've seen it through a lot of other times, like I've seen my family go through situations, and I think what has really helped is keeping the humor intact just as much as you need it, okay. It sort of releases those chemicals which bring in a lot of positivity to you. And if you just stop thinking 10 steps ahead, because we have the tendency that when we are going through a situation, we start thinking 10 steps ahead. Oh, am I going to start getting breathless? Are my symptoms going to get aggravated over a period of time? Am I going to be able to handle it? Then I think you just call it on to yourself. Our parameters went haywire towards the later part of it. Seriously, sugars were all over the place. The WBC count was high. So many things. But then the thing was that in general, we just kept ourselves pepped up, and we knew that it was like a very temporary thing. We were just staying in this moment and doing what needed to be handled at this point in time. So take it one step at a time. If you are okay today, if you're feeling all right, a little bit of your parameters being here and there, as long as you trust your doctors to be able to handle it, I think it's perfectly fine. Okay. And speaking of humor, there is something that I really need to show you guys. Okay. And this is one of the ways in which we were keeping ourselves uh, as amusingly. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but yeah, I think that was me releasing my creative energies. Okay. so so yeah, this was just like one part of it. So I just thought I should share this. So I started with Shilpa actually. The doggy mask came first, and sooner than later I realized that, oh, I need to have one for myself as well. And I think one of the days after we were we started getting a little better, and I think Dad was inside the room, and I think one of us just like went and opened the door wearing one of these masks, and we realized it much later. But yeah, so that's what it was. Uh, so yeah, we tried keeping ourselves totally pepped up through the entire phase. And even when you're having conversations with people, and this works like magic, okay. If you kind of keep going on, oh, I'm feeling so miserable, I'm feeling so tired, and I'm so scared, you kind of reaffirming it to yourself, okay. Even when you speak to someone, if you keep that positivity high, if you say that, hey, you know what, yes, I am kind of feeling a little down right now, I think I just need to sleep it off and I'll be okay. Your mind kind of registers it that, hey, yes, I need to heal myself, I need to get better, I need to take care of my body, I need to take care of my soul, and that's what it is. Now, the next thing is track your symptoms every day, the smallest of symptoms. Okay, how you're feeling on that particular day. How is it that you're, are you having palpitations? Are you sweating more than usual? Are your parameters a little here and there? Like, we had a track record of everything. Okay, and if you see the smallest sign of distress, just speak to your doctor. If needed, get to a hospital. Okay. Now, this is for those of you who, who are isolated alone, okay? Stay in touch with the rest of the family, okay? From a distance, if your home permits, like I know in my house, like from one corner to another is way beyond the 6 feet distance that has been asked for. I think it's at least about 12, 15, 16 feet away. So we actually still had our meals together, which means that dad used to sit in one corner of the house and we used to sit in the other corner in such a way where we could just see each other. Maybe we wouldn't even be able to talk to each other as well, but we would just sit across and we would probably have our meal. So it just gave us that feeling of, being with the family, the whole family being together. And we did we did WhatsApp calls, video calls, and that's how we kept ourselves occupied. But then saying that if you're by yourself, just find out ways and means of, staying in touch with the rest of the family over video calls and stuff. Okay. Uh, Keep your mind occupied, just stop watching all of those COVID videos. What works, what doesn't, who has died, who has survived. I understand, it is something which just pops up on your screen, but then saying that just try and stay off from as much of negativity as you can. Okay. If you have the energy and if you have the inclination, pick up things which you've always wanted to do. Maybe read that book, do some writing, paint, do whatever, if you have the energy. If not, just sleep. Okay. If you want, you can watch movies, light-hearted, friendly, nice, happy kind of movies. Okay. Whatever works for you. And just be grateful to be alive, today. Funnily, we even gave ourselves names, okay, at how funny the whole situation was turning out to be, because we had the same symptoms all along. When we were lethargic, all of us were lethargic together. When we were sleepy, we were sleepy throughout the day. There were actually 1 or 2 days where we were just doing eat, sleep, and repeat, and that's about it, okay? And that's all fine. And we gave ourselves the names of Babu Rao, Shyam, and Raju, for those of you who have seen Hera Fairy. So mom was Babu Rao, which is Paresh Rawal's character. I was Shyam, which is Sunil Shetty, and Raju was basically Shilpa, okay? And we had like a hearty laugh over it. We would just wake up because we were on steroids and we would feel like really, really hungry in the middle of the night. All of us would wake up and you can't even imagine. One of us waking up means the other two would also wake up. And then middle of the night, we would get ourselves something to eat and we would sit munching at 3 o'clock in the morning, okay? And that's how it was. And we even celebrated a birthday, by the way. So my sister, she basically, celebrated her birthday in quarantine last year because we had a lockdown. And this year, when we thought that we could probably celebrate the birthday on a grander scale, COVID happened. And obviously, dad was not there and my brother-in-law was not there. So we ended up just calling in for 2 slices. Like it was literally like, because our sugars were running high, so we didn't want a full-blown cake to be coming in at that time. So we just got like 2 slices of cake, of brownie actually, and we cut that. And of course, we had already prepared for her birthday in advance, so we had some decorations lying in my room, and we just got that and did that. But of course, we're going to be doing like a full-blown celebration. So that's us on the 2nd of May, by the way. Okay. So, you just need to keep it as normal as possible. And that's what I think really works well. Okay. And, I've given you some statistics at the start of this conversation, and we're not a part of the 4%. Okay. But what happens is that every time that we come onto a social media site, we always talk about people who are suffering. Of course, I have lost people that I know. I know of people who are hospitalized. But I think people who have recovered from COVID, it is important that we talk about it. We bring in that positivity because people are going through a lot of stress and a lot of trauma, thinking about what if, even people who haven't got it. There is like a level of paranoia which is out here, which is unfathomable. But I seriously feel that if we are able to catch it early, it makes a huge difference in terms of how quick you get over it. Now, every doctor has his or her own way of dealing with it. and we will kind of, talk just about a little bit about that. But one caution for friends and family: just don't get paranoid if somebody in your family tests positive for COVID. Keep the affected person pepped up and going. If the person needs some pep talk and you feel that it's beyond you, maybe the person is already showing signs of being depressed or being upset. I mean, there are people who get suicidal thoughts when they are tested positive, as if that's like the end of the world. Get the person to speak to a counselor if required. Okay. Be empathetic towards the person. And this holds true not just for yourself, well, somebody within your family, but trust me, I really don't understand certain people who, as much as don't even think it's important to just pick up the phone and ask, maybe some neighbor or somebody around who wouldn't even kind of as much as call you, as if, you'll probably pass through COVID through the phone, or maybe too scared that if you just ask somebody if, hey, you know what, I got to know that you're down with COVID, do you need some help? It seems as if, oh, if they ask, then we're going to say, hey, you know what, yeah, get me some food, get me some drinks and whatever else. Okay. Trust me, nobody's going to ask you to do that. People, I think, know very well not how not to put somebody else in trouble. But saying that, I think you need to build a lot of empathy towards people around you, and to the people who live with you, around you, who are your friends, who are your family or neighbors or whosoever else. Okay. Now, what could have been done better? Firstly, I feel that we kind of let our guards down towards the end of it. We should, I mean, of course, we were kind of wearing masks and, everything. But of course, we could probably be a little more cautious in terms of not really not even socializing. In fact, I wouldn't call it socializing. It was a death in the family. We couldn't have avoided it. But yeah, maybe we should just maintain some distance per se. The second thing is that maybe we could have been a little more better prepared in terms of keeping important numbers handy, whether it's about hospital numbers or oxygen cylinders, doctor numbers, etc. Because, thankfully, we didn't need any of it. It never came to it. But saying that, it's always better that we have some of this information handy with us, just in case, because you don't want to go scampering around at the last minute. Okay. But otherwise, I think we did it well. But what I realized was that there are certain things that we can do preemptively. Okay. Because see, the rate at which it's spreading, a lot of us might get it sooner than later. Okay. And it's not as scary if you catch it early. As I said, I can't emphasize on this enough, but it's important that you catch it early. You catch the symptoms early. Okay. Now, the point is that even before you get it, I think you need to take that decision in advance. What is the course of, how aggressive would you want to be with the treatment? Okay, because I understand that doctors do take a call in that. There are doctors who go aggressive, there are doctors who go conservative. And when I say aggressive, what I meant was, like, say for example, because we have conditions like, I have lupus, my sister has endometriosis, my mom is diabetic, she's hypertensive, and of course we come with conditions. So for us it was a no-brainer. We were not going the traditional route of taking vitamin D and paracetamol or crocin or whatever else, and waiting it out for 3-4 days to see if it gets controlled or not. Okay, for us, we went aggressive right from day one itself. Like, our doctors were kind of in sync with that, in the sense, I mean, they recommended as well, and we were on everything right from antiviral to antibiotic to steroids to blood thinners, etc. And we were okay with that, because for us it was more important not to let the symptoms come out. Okay. And the other way is that, of course, a lot of people have aversion to, using so much of medication, etc. And they would prefer going conservative, which is fine. So then you have to have a doctor who kind of, is in consensus with your want or your need of treatment. Okay. So I think if you have a family doctor, you can, of course, talk to them in advance and, just figure out how would he want to kind of deal with it if at all you were to at some point of time come down with COVID, etc. Okay, and if you do not have a doctor, I think it's important that you identify a doctor in advance. I'm not saying that you have to talk to them. I understand not everybody would have that liberty or would not have that time, but saying that at least if you know who are the doctors that you can probably, like, of course you may have friends who have gone through COVID who would recommend doctors. You can talk about what their experience has been like, and if at all they would recommend the doctor, and what was the course of treatment, etc. and stuff, and at least know who are the people. Okay, if you're down with COVID, then I would strongly prefer that you look for a doctor who does online consultation or who's accessible on the phone, because when you're positive, you don't want to be moving around so much. Okay, for us, we were at home all along, and I know of a lot of people who were basically, unless you need to get hospitalized, that's besides the point, but as far as possible, someone who's available to consult with you over the phone or online. Okay, second, and yes, please don't forget to, if you're already down with it and the doctor is kind of treating you with a particular course of medication, don't forget to ask them on what's the possible side effects of the treatment, because you don't want to be like flustered when you suddenly see your sugars rising or whatever, because you need to know that, okay, because you are taking certain medication, there are things which are bound to happen as well. Okay. Second, be prepared, like when you are down with it, you don't want to be suddenly struggling with things like, oh, where, are we going to be cooking, or am I going to be getting food from outside? If I'm getting food from outside, who's going to provide food? Okay. Or for that matter, is there a chemist who will come and deliver things? Okay. For this is especially for those of you who go out and pick up medication, because through these times, you would want someone who can come and deliver it at your place. Identify these and keep these numbers with you. Okay. Likewise, somebody who's going to bring in groceries for you or general utility items. Fourth, for pet parents, okay, who is taking in pets of from families who have tested positive? Because there are a lot of people who are not taking in pets from homes where people have tested positive. So find out, make sure that you have those numbers with you. Okay, so keep these things with you. You may never need it, it's okay, but it's a good to have information. Okay. The third thing is decide what's the protocol within the family going to be. When I say protocol within the family, I'm generally talking about, okay, like say, for example, if someone were to come down, okay, do you have like a room or a space aligned where the person can be there? Is it ventilated enough? Which room is going to be used? Which room is not? And, will the kitchen be accessible to the rest of the family, so on and so forth. So the basic protocols, I think it's better that you decide in advance, because not everybody will have the luxury of having like 6, 7, 8 rooms. Even we didn't have that luxury, but yeah, we have 3 rooms in the house. And between that, we were able to occupy 2 rooms between the 3 of us. And my father had the main master bedroom and the living room to himself. Okay. And with the access to the door. This all the more becomes important if you have children at home, because then these decisions become difficult, because I know of families where you have like really, really young children, and at times, the mother has not tested positive, and there is no option but for the child to be, kept with the mother itself. Okay, because obviously the child cannot be left on her own. So there are some of these decisions that you will really, really have to take in advance, that God forbid, if a situation comes like this, where let's say, for example, the mother is positive, but the child is not, or maybe the child has tested positive, or probably the father has tested positive. How are you going to plan isolation, etc.? Because you don't want to be, breaking your head over these decisions at that point in time. Okay. The next and very important thing is that if anybody in your family is affected, preemptively keep a bag ready, basic clothes, toothbrush, blah, 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 whatever you would require. Because, if at all you need to rush the person to the hospital, at that point of time, you don't want to be sitting and packing, right? Or you don't want to be thinking about it. So you can just keep a bag ready, just like how people do during pregnancy, that, you keep a bag ready because you don't know when you got to get to the hospital. Just preemptively keep a bag ready, which has basic stuff. And Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is applicable everywhere, but there are certain hospitals which take pre-booking, by the way, So if you think that you may need a hospital bed, you can call up the hospital and give a booking. So you get a booking number, basically, a booking number basically is that, okay, you call up today, your number is like whatever, 58, 60 or 65, you can always cancel that out later. And some hospitals are doing that, okay. Uh, Please, if you're living in a society, have a conversation with the society chairman or the management committee and see if they can keep a standby oxygen cylinder or a concentrator in the society, just in case somebody needs it. Okay. Now, this one is important, and I don't think we talk about that often, but it's important that you decide on finances, because if at all there is a need for hospitalization, you know you need to have a plan A, plan B. If you are fortunately, if you have like shitloads of money, I'm sure you don't have anything to worry about. But I've seen so many cases where people are struggling to pay the hospital bills, etc. Okay. So keep your insurance documents handy, okay, in case you have an insurance. But trust me, a lot of times the basic insurance is not enough to cover the expenses that people are coming across. So you need to have a plan B. Are you going to be who's your next point of contact in case you do run out of money? Okay, is there somebody who you can probably ask money from, or else do you think you can raise a fundraiser or whatever else? Okay, but you need to have that thing planned, because the hospital bills are like crazy, especially with COVID. And you don't want to be at that point of time struggling to figure out as to how is it that you're going to be arranging the money from. Okay. I think that's more or less what I wanted to share, because of course I've shared my experience, I've shared what could have been done better, and I have shared my lessons of what is it that you need to be prepared for, because as much as you think that it can't hit you, it very well can. Okay, I hope it does not. And if you've gone through the experience already, you would know what this experience feels like. I think we just got like really lucky, and I think we just kept ourselves very, very positive, and we were like super careful with everything, right from medication being taken on time to monitoring what's going up and what's going down, and talking to the doctor and moderating the dosages, etc. Everything was like taken care of. So I would just want to say that, guys, for those of you who still have an apprehension about the vaccination, I would strongly urge all of you to just go ahead and get vaccinated. Trust me, even a 65-70% protection is great, okay? And if nothing at all, if you still get COVID, at least we know that your symptoms will definitely be a lot milder if you have got the jab, okay? So for those of you who still are apprehensive about it, just go ahead, without a doubt, just go ahead and get yourself vaccinated. Okay. And I am going to be putting two links here. One is the spirometer that I spoke about. For those of you who don't know about it, you can check it out. It's a small little device, and it helps increase your lung capacity. You don't have to be down with COVID to be using it. You can do it even otherwise also. It just kind of protects your lungs and makes it stronger. And the other thing that I'm going to be putting up is the prone position, which helps accelerate the oxygen intake in the body. So these two YouTube links I'm going to be putting in in the text box. Okay. And thank you so much for joining in. If you have any questions, if you think that there is anything that you need help with, or else if you're still struggling and mentally feeling spaced out and you want to have a conversation, by all means reach out to me. I'm happy to have a discussion with you guys. Okay. All right. Take care then. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.